Welcome to the Client Success Customer Support Executive Brain Trust. We have just met to talk about handle times. And this is the post event panel discussion where we share what our key takeaways were. We talk about what we discussed in breakout rooms as client success and customer support executives. This month, we had an awesome panel discussion around handle times. I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Virtue to basically summarize what we talked about in the panel. And then I'm going to turn it over to this group here to share some of their insights from today's discussion. Over to you, Tracy.
Thanks, Paul. We had an interesting discussion, starting first with what are benchmarks that are out there for average handle time, and they were all less than 5 minutes. Our panelists talked about the importance of the customer experience versus how fast you got them off the phone or how fast you got back to the email. The general sentiment was that everyone cared more about making sure that we provided an excellent experience for the customer and resolved their problem, regardless of what industry we were in. We turned it over to our breakout rooms to hear how other people are dealing with handle times.
And if I could actually, I'm going to jump right in because what we do is we have everyone submit what they chatted about on a mural board. And someone said something really interesting. And Ken, I'd like for you to weigh in on this and then we'll open it up to everyone else. Someone, and I loved your answer to this earlier, but someone said resolution time more important than handle time. Ken, how are those two different? And could you kind of share with the group your thoughts on that?
Certainly. Handle time and resolution time can be very different depending on the situation that you're in, because handling means you dealt with the situation that came to you to the extent that you can. So, for example, think about a software product. When the client calls in and says, I'm having this problem, and the agent works with you and figures out, well, here's the problem. And there's an actual bug here. You have handled that call. You determined there is a bug. Well, the call center cannot fix that bug. That's going to have to go to the engineers, and there's going to be a cycle time of development. There's going to be testing. It may be a few weeks, maybe even a few months before it's fixed. That would be the resolution. It wouldn't be fair to say that that call was resolved because you didn't fix the bug. But there isn't anything more that the call center can do about it right now, or customer success at all. It has been handled. The handle time was however long, a few minutes or an hour or what have you. The resolution time, well, ultimately that could be, even a month or two, depending on the nature of the of how your development is done. So they're two very, very different things.
Great points and considerations, and a ton of other insights on our mural board. I'm going to open it up. Who else wants to kind of share what you discussed about in your breakout room, and maybe some of the things you may have shared with your peers?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great breakout room. I was actually fortunate enough to be in there with Tracy and Chris and Alex, who's not in this right now. But we really chopped it up, and um, the resolution time, being more important, I think, than handle time is so valid. For me specifically and my team, a lot of the times we're waiting on warranty devices and things like that. So really, the outcome is more important than anything else. And what Tracy had brought up, I think is great, and we do quite a good job at, is just responding to people in the interim, keeping them informed and letting them know where they're at in the process. I think that goes miles, in the customer's eyes as far as trust levels. And then something that Alex touched on is just the idea that, we're an extension of the product that the consumer is buying itself. And so, they get us along with that product. They get so many other pieces of value, and I think that's the biggest thing as well. Is um, our job is to make sure that we give the best experience at all times. At the end of the day, is that possible? Probably not. And, every person's experience is so different, so vastly different. But staying true to the philosophies of your organization and making sure you do your best to provide that best experience is, on a consistent basis. I think over time you get a lot of yields from that.
Yeah, and something else to add to that, we also discussed having a holistic view, meaning handle time and utilizing ranges for handle time, as well as connecting that to sentiment to make sure that your handle time is consistent with kind of the voice of the customer, and then tying that with your internal QA and making sure your internal QA is focused on outcomes and not just hitting a number.
One thing that we revolved around, it came from several different angles in my breakout room, was wherever possible, the importance of giving the customer options and choice, because if we try and assume what the customer really wants, we're often going to get it wrong. We've probably all been in this experience where we called in for some tech support somewhere, and of course we're on hold. And then at some point it says, you know, we got a lot of people on the line. It's going to be probably 15 minutes before we get to you. Do you want to stay on hold? Or would you rather put in your phone number and we will call you back when you get to the top of the queue? Now that puts the choice on you as the customer. Do I want to stay there like this or put the phone on speaker? Or would I rather just leave it with them and hopefully they'll call me back in 10 or 15 minutes or whenever the case may be? You can choose that. And that's a good thing, because sometimes I might say, no, I don't trust you. I want to stay on the phone where I know you're there. Or other times I might say, well, I got some other things I want to do and I'll just keep my phone in my pocket and it'll probably ring when they get around to it. And it might be a different answer on different occasions. You couldn't even assume it's the same customer. We know what they're going to choose. And that gives the customer a feeling of empowerment and a feeling that the company, at least on some level, cares about their life and gives them the ability to fit it into their life as best as they possibly can. So wherever you can realistically do that, do you want to communicate by phone? Would you rather have the answer by phone or maybe send an email or a text or something? Whatever fits best with that customer with that particular case, the more you give of that, automatically the happier they're going to be because they feel cared about.
Paul, one thing that also came up was people talking about what tools are you giving to your customers to get the answer themselves as quickly as possible? If you're dealing with fast questions, maybe those are things that you could put on your website of like frequently asked questions for customers to find answers to themselves. So looking at your calls or your emails as they're coming in and say, what are the repeat questions that we're getting? And give customers an easy way to find that answer for themselves, so that, you know, we're doing a lot of self-service these days. And that's another way to not focus on the handle time, but take the shortest handle times and keep pushing those into other venues and channels for customers to find the answers themselves.
Fantastic. Thank you all for a great summary of our discussion today. I hope you are taking, the people watching are taking away some good thoughts. Join our LinkedIn group if you haven't already. I want to thank you all for participating in the Brain Trust, and I'll hope to see you at next month's event.